What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and our journey to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams now takes its next stop in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We are going to be talking about the Alabama Crimson Tide here in 2025 out of the SEC. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and helping to support the channel. If you want to help support the channel even further, please do what it says below me and hit that subscribe button, and you might as well ring the bell while you're down there because turning notifications on ensures that you won't miss an upload, and you especially don't want to miss your favorite team, right? Thank you so much for supporting me, however you may be doing so. I am delving on into the professional world of sports media as a sports media graduate. So if you want to see all the cool stuff I do in that regard, as well as updates to what goes here on YouTube, please give me a follow, Twitter or X and Instagram. It's at TailgateNate29, and you can even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for supporting and interacting with me or the channel, however you may be doing so. Does mean a lot to me. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we dive on in. Our next team for preview and predictions, we just keep rolling right along here. The Alabama Crimson Tide, coached by second-year man Kalen DeBoer. The Bama fan would categorize season one as disappointing. However, I think they like Kalen DeBoer and are trying to be patient. Year two should see its fair share of really, really, really good things within this Alabama program this year. How do we do preview predictions on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview first. The offense will be over here. Again, almost pointed the wrong way. The defense will be over here. And at the end, we'll go through the Alabama schedule, and I'll tell you what I think about the Crimson Tide here in 2025. Couple other numbers I do want to turn your attention to right down below me is returning production numbers with some transfer portal value included into that as well. And speaking of portal value, right down below is not only the portal, but also the recruiting ranks according to 24/7 Sports. We will start as usual right over here with the offense. Your offensive coordinator in 2025 is once again Ryan Grubb. Alabama's going to be having a new quarterback this year and is one of the most highly hot anticipated quarterback battles this season. But it kind of already has said who it's going to be, right? Both Ryan Grubb has alluded to it, more so Kalen DeBoer has alluded to it. And despite the loss of Jalen Milroe, 2,800 yards, 16 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. Yikes. But also your leading rusher, 726 yards, 20 rushing touchdowns, and just a dynamic dual threat quarterback. That is not the Kalen DeBoer system. Kalen DeBoer, that was his first true dual threat style quarterback that he has had at the D1 level. No matter who it is, whether it's Ty Simpson or Austin Mack, and everybody, including head coach Kalen DeBoer, will tell you it's probably Ty Simpson, it's going to fit better into what this Alabama offense wants to do under Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer. It is more of a pocket passing offense, and let the running backs do their own thing. Let the running backs do their own work. Jalen Milroe was great. He's a really good talent and could prove to be a pretty good piece at the next level with the Seattle Seahawks. But Ty Simpson and Austin Mack, while I don't think by nature are rawly more talented or better players, although I guess one could argue that, they just simply fit better with this system. And it's why I think you're going to see an overall improvement in quarterback play this season. It again looks like it's going to end up being Ty Simpson, who's been here for a little bit. Your heavy hitter in the running back room and Justice Haynes is gone. 79 carries, 448 yards, and 7 touchdowns last season among qualified rushers. Did lead the Crimson Tide in yards per carry last season. However, your leading rusher among running backs in Jam Miller is coming back. 668 yards and 7 touchdowns for him last year. He will be the primary back, as well as Richard Young. He's going to end up stepping in to a much bigger role this upcoming season now as running back too. You did get a transfer to the room. It is Dre Washington. We'll see how much talent and, well, not talent, but we'll see how much productivity he's able to provide to this backfield this upcoming year. Some good pieces are going to portal out of this wide receiver room, folks. There are a ton of them. Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, Caleb Odom, and just some, again, some really, really good pieces that are going to be leaving there for you. Now, they didn't necessarily have the most productive seasons last year, but they have in the past for this program. Again, those are some pretty good pieces. They didn't, again, have the biggest impact on the team last year, especially that of Prentice and Law, but I think they're both going to go have pretty good, successful seasons at their new respective programs. You still get one of the best wide receivers back in the country, and I know Bama fans will argue he is the best. A lot of college football fans will argue Jeremiah Smith, but Ryan Williams, as a 17-year-old last year, 865 yards and 8 touchdowns and 48 catches for the Crimson Tide last season. As a 17-year-old, he's going to get better this year. He's going to be more experienced, and honestly, he's 17. He's probably going to be a lot bigger this year than he was last year, but Ryan Williams, much like Jeremiah Smith, is a grown-ass man. He is phenomenal. He'll come back and lead Bama in receiving. This year, Jeremy Bernard, the former Washington Husky, as well as I believe Michigan State Spartan, he's back as well. 794 yards, 2 touchdowns there as well. He had his most productive season, had his most productive season last year. And definitely could carry that over into 2025. And Isaiah Horton is going to now be coming over from Miami to again try to fill the gap of giving this team a true wide receiver 3. He had 616 yards and 5 touchdowns last season with the Miami Hurricanes. I would expect more tight end production from this team this year, especially knowing with what Kalen DeBoer did with some of the tight end pieces when he made the national championship at Washington, right? The tight ends were just not that productive this season. No tight end had over 300 yards, which is a little unusual. Now, technically, you did have C.J. Dupree and Cuevas, who was your third and fourth leading receivers this year. But again, barely over 250 yards for Dupree. The second leading man now there in Josh Cuevas, as well as, look, just a ton of other names as you move to a 2 tight end system there as well, or you can play 2 tight ends. Danny Lewis, as well as a transfer, and Brody Dalton. Jay Lindsey is a redshirt freshman. I just think the tight end room is going to see a lot more time and a lot better production than what it did last season. Tyler Booker is gone pro off of this offensive line, but your starters are absolutely loaded. You got some of the best offensive linemen in the country here. Caden Proctor at left tackle, Parker Brailsford in at center, Jaden Roberts in at right guard. You even get a pretty good transfer in Cam Dewberry there to fill in the left guard position. I think this offensive line is going to be a fairly decent strength of this Bama team this year, and I know in years prior it's had some questions. This year, it's absolutely loaded with talent, and the expectation should be high for the offensive front in 2025. Defensively, your defensive coordinator is Kane Womack, and let's just dive right on into the talent, shall we? Tim Smith is going pro, and more weapons are going to be leaving through the transfer portal. Tim Smith was a dynamite piece for this team. Again, only 2 sacks of production, but was a force from the defensive interior, 35 tackles last season. And if you want to talk about some players, again, that are going to be transferring out of this defensive line room, Jaheim Otis is going to be gone. Damon Payne is going to be gone. Keanu Ko, as well as a couple of other depth pieces will be leaving this room as well. However, LT Overton and Tim Keenan are both going to be taking over here as far as lead defensive linemen, and both of them even had more tackles than Tim Smith last year, both top 10 tacklers, over 40, 4.5 sacks of production between the two, and they're in a pretty talented room in and of themselves, right? As far as those guys, though, you have James Smith and then Rousseau, however you say that last name. Again, I apologize. Plays that wolf position, which is like a defensive edge linebacker combination player. Those will all be pretty fruitful pieces for the Crimson Tide this year. And speaking of the linebacker room, you get a really, really big loss here. Jahad Campbell, not only your leading tackler, but also your sack leader last year, will be leaving this team. I believe he is going to play professional football. Yes, it says right there on screen. 119 tackles and 5 sacks for Campbell last year. Dynamic player. Again, just add it to the list of really, really talented Bama linebackers that have come through this program. However, Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson are going to come back to lead a group that overall is pretty experienced. Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson were both top 10 or top 5 tacklers even for this defense last year. And again, you can add even more. Rousseau, again, however you say that last name, he's coming back. You can include him in that linebacker room. And even if you want to go further, Caleb Jones is there. Jamarian Latham, again, is in that rush position, so you can include him in this group. And you get a graduate transfer in Nakai Hill Green coming over, and he's had a lot of good production in his past ventures. So still a really, really good linebacker room, what I'm trying to say here for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And again, there are some fairly high impact transfers that are going to be making their mark here as well. I already mentioned Nakai Hill Green there for you. Kelby Collins is in there. As well as some other pieces, including some freshmen that could make some pretty big impacts. And there's a pretty darn good solid piece that'll provide some depth at the very minimum in the secondary in Cam Calhoun. But this is the secondary that sees, again, a lot of key pieces leave. Malachi Moore is the start, right? One of the leaders in this secondary, but also the defense as a whole. 70 tackles, 8 passes defended, which led the team, had a couple of picks last season. And again, if you want to go to, again, some defensive back players that transferred out. Again, two really important pieces here. Devontae Smith and King Mack are going to be gone from this safety room. So you got to try to fill in all of that production. But 10 interceptions of production is going to be coming back here to this defense. Keon Sabb is going to be an absolutely massive part out of the free safety position. Xavier Brown, again, he had the game-sealing pick against Georgia. Bray Hubbard, Domani Jackson, Deshaun Jones. This is still a pretty darn solid secondary group, even with all it loses, but the corners have got to step up. There are a lot of plays where Bama was beat on the edge and down the field. That's Domani Jackson. That's Xavier Brown. That's Deshaun Jones. And yes, Domani Jackson, good player, didn't necessarily have the brightest moments last year, but Xavier Brown was much like Ryan Williams, a true freshman last season. I say that because they wear the exact same number. So he's going to be another year experience. He's going to be another year better. And with Kane Womack as your defensive coordinator, I think that is absolutely going to be a place to improve, as well as just something that I think you will see get a lot better this year in terms of Bama defending the edges of the field. Both punting and kicking room are going to see a lot of young pieces come on in here and try to take over for, again, what was a pretty solid special teams unit with Bama last season. Still going to be a really nice, good team in Bama this year, and Kalen DeBoer should see some good improvement, especially with a quarterback that more fits his system. Still good offensive and defensive pieces here in 2025. This is the Alabama football schedule for the upcoming season, and right down below me are some odds courtesy of FanDuel. They are, as of recording this video, and subject to change, but no, this is not me telling you, hey, go place your money on these things. You do what you want with your money. I'm not going to tell you what to do with that. I shouldn't tell you what to do with that. It's just a little context for how good the odds makers think Alabama is going to be in 2025. And, well, plus 490 to win the SEC, one of the highest marks in the conference, I believe third or fourth. I'll check my math on that. And then to win the national championship, again, plus 1,000. That's also one of the highest marks in the country. They are third in SEC odds, only behind that of Texas and Georgia. And as far as the national championship picture goes, they sit alone in sixth, I do believe. Yes, they sit alone in sixth for national title odds. This is a team that's very much so expected to be towards the top of college football. I expect that of them as well. Now, you have a road game against Florida State first week of the season. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. This is the game that Bama should win fairly handedly. Now, is Florida State going to be the same 2-10 monstrosity year that they had last season? No, absolutely not. In fact, they're probably going to end up making a bowl game in 2025. But this is a team that sees a ton of overhaul, and it's a big reason why I just think Florida State's going to get better. Not a lot of returning faces. Everything is new. It could cause for some hiccups right away, which is another reason Bama should win this one. Thomas Castellanos from Boston College, he's coming in. Lots of wide receiver pieces, some good pieces in the defensive front seven. Again, they're not going to have a disaster season, but Florida State will be an easy win for Bama to kick off the year, much like ULM will be, University of Louisiana Monroe. Actually, I'm going to change it to that. Oh, there we go. That is so much better, right? No matter how you want to list it out on a graphic or say it or anything like that, Bama will beat the Warhawks at home will be pretty easy for them there. And then a home game against Wisconsin. This, again, much like the game, even on the road against Florida State, this should be a one that Bama is going to win. Now, Wisconsin expected to be better this year. You're breaking another new quarterback in Billy Edwards. You're going to boost your wide receiver room with Jaden Ballard after all you lost in the transfer portal. Defense should still be pretty solid, and some good transfers coming in at every level of that defense. Again, is Wisconsin going to be a shell of itself usually and going to be a down year? Most likely, no. Most likely they're going to get better this year, but talent matchup just doesn't compare. Bama should win that one against the Badgers at home. Then you get your bye week before the big showdown on the road against Georgia. Fireworks galore. Instant classic from last season, and we could get another one here on the road now in Athens instead of in Tuscaloosa. And that's where I think Georgia gets Bama back. Bama won a thriller last season, but Georgia, I just think the physicality level and, again, talent matchup, pretty darn even here. Gunnar Stockton has some questions to answer for me at the quarterback position, but I think he's still going to be a pretty solid weapon for him. You get some dynamite players in the wide receiver room, and Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas, and this is where I think you're truly going to see these cornerbacks that need to step up get tested this year. I do think that Georgia has weapons to be able to stretch you out downfield. Zachariah Branch being the big one there, especially with how speedy he is. I think the Bama secondary can have some trouble with that, as well as just the overall physicality from one of the best defensive fronts in the country, an offensive line that can still hit this Bama defensive line hard and protect the quarterback Gunnar Stockton well, as well as this one being at home in Athens. I got Georgia winning this one against the Alabama Crimson Tide to hand Bama its first loss this season. And there are plenty of room, there's plenty of room to lose more games. However, it will not come against Vanderbilt. They are going to avenge that absolutely historic upset from last season. And Diego Pavia is back. Diego Pavia, when he doesn't want his team to lose, he doesn't let his team lose. Well, sorry, as much as he may not want to lose this game, he's going to. Bama should be able to avenge that loss to Vanderbilt from last season. On the road against Missouri. Missouri got one of the better transfer portal classes coming in here, and they needed it because Missouri is replacing a ton of pretty darn good players. New quarterback in Bo Pribula, Penn State transfer coming in. You have Ahmad Hardy now taking over that running back room. You're fully trying to revamp your wide receiver room. Your tackles are going to be all new through the portal. Defensively, you're replacing a lot, but there's still some good talent there, especially on that defensive front. I think Missouri can give Alabama its challenges, but exactly where Missouri is strong defensively, I think Alabama is really strong offensively, and that's especially in the line of scrimmage. For as good as Missouri's defensive front might be this year, I think Bama's offensive line, again, is going to be really good, and I just don't think the offense is going to be as talented as it was last year, leading Bama to a win on the road in Columbia. They should be able to beat Missouri. And I also think Bama is going to beat Tennessee. The whole Nico Iamaleava situation, again, you put that behind us. You take a look at what Tennessee has, losing a ton of talent. Dylan Sampson gone, as well as Nico. Your wide receiver room overhauled by the portal. Everybody left. Defensively, you lose your wrecking ball in James Pierce. Now, I think Joey Aguilar can be a solid weapon. Wide receiver room still got some solid pieces. And the successor to Dylan Sampson, probably not going to be as good as him, but still in a fairly good position, especially with the offensive mind of Josh Heupel. I just don't see Tennessee competing with Bama this year. I really don't. I think it's going to be a very perplexing year to try to figure out for this volunteer program, and Bama will win the third Saturday in October matchup. But this is a game against South Carolina that I do see some slip-ups in. South Carolina is going to be one of the most dynamic teams in the country, and it's because of who they have at quarterback. Get to know the name Lenora Sellers. If you don't already, you should already know the name, but just in case you don't, get to know the name. He's going to be one of the best producers in the country. Nick Harbor, the junior wide receiver, is in for a breakout season. Defensive front got overhauled with some phenomenal pieces from the transfer portal, and the secondary, I think, is going to be able to handle this Bama receiver room pretty well. There are going to be moments where they're not going to be able to defend Ryan Williams, not going to be able to defend Jeremy Bernard, but I think a takeaway or two here, which is what this Gamecock secondary is going to force a lot of this season, on top of the fact you are a dynamic offense and you were this close to beating Bama last year, I got South Carolina winning this game, man. Watch out for the Gamecocks. They are a true threat to get into the college football playoff this year, and I think they will beat, at the time might be considered an upset, at least historically it is, but they will beat the Alabama Crimson Tide. You get 2 losses now, but you get a week to refresh and regroup before what's going to be a really, really tough LSU team. Garrett Nussmeier is a really, really good quarterback. You're going to get Harold Perkins back from injury, pair him with Whit Weeks in the linebacker room with all the other talent they have. That's a really good defensive unit that already saw a great jump from the new defensive coordinator. Name is escaping my mind here, but LSU's defense should see another jump in 2025, and this offense should be dynamic. Some amazing wide receiver pieces come in there, but now you're in do or die situation. You're in can't lose territory for Bama, and look, this one, if it was on the road, I'd pick LSU. It's not. It's at home. I think Bama's going to end up winning this game. I think it's going to be an absolute instant classic, but to keep their playoff hopes majority alive, I think Bama's going to end up winning that one against the LSU Tigers. Oklahoma's an interesting case because you have John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle coming in to be sort of that new combination for you. I do believe that Bama will beat Oklahoma, even though the Sooners are going to be a pretty solid team out of the SEC this year. I just do believe that Oklahoma is going to end up losing this game to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Eastern Illinois, that's an easy win. And then on the road against Auburn, this is also where things get dicey. But where I think Bama wins this game is because of how young some of these defensive pieces are, especially in that secondary. It's a very, very talented secondary. I don't see a guy that can defend Ryan Williams here. And Ty Simpson is fully locked in by this point. Bama's offense is rolling at full speed. And I think the defense is going to be able to handle a lot of these pieces. I think even though Auburn's wide receiver room is really good, I think Bama's secondary matches up well. And Bama goes on the road, gets a win at Auburn, also keeping their playoff hopes alive. For Bama, I got 10-2 this season. Isn't it an improvement from last year? Yes. Is it still what Bama fans won? Well, they're probably going to get into the college football playoff with a record and a resume like that. You get 2 Power 4 non-conference wins. You have some pretty big road wins and even wins at home against what at the end of the day is going to be some really, really good competition. Bama should be a college football playoff team this year. If not, then I think it's time to start worrying about what Kalen DeBoer can do with this program. I like Coach DeBoer a lot. I think he'll find a lot of success in Tuscaloosa this year. That's my thoughts on Bama. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. As always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.